Hey guys, this is Jim, WT1W, and you're watching FEPLabs Radio. Thanks for stopping by. This video is about a kit that I bought from TO, oh my goodness, 2 or 3 years ago. 2022, so it's been a couple years, back when he was up in the frozen tundra of Wisconsin. And this is a neat little kit. This is something you could cobble together yourself. I liked the kit idea. I thought it was pretty cool. And it has some unique functionality to it. So let's go through what it is. Now, I've got it partially put together already, but I wanted to share with you the bits and bobs. We have power pole connectors right here that we're going to fasten to this board. This is what one of those connectors looks like before it's jammed in the actual power pole end. We have a small circuit board here, and then we have 2 fuse blocks that go in like so. And what this will allow us to do is now we have a fusible link right here with power poles in line. And again, this is not my idea. This is, as you can see, designed by KM9G and N8DAH, and they got the circuit board done. It's a very simple circuit board. I don't know if you ask TO, he may still have the information on this and you could get these done yourself. So the idea here obviously is you have a fuse. And what I like about this kit is the hardware, these are stout. So these things will take easily 30 amps and probably 40. These may be 45 amp connectors. But this was a great way to throw an inline fuse on something, and without wanting to cause a lot of drama, it will fuse the hot and the ground side of the circuit. So you will have a fusible, and this uses just the regular blade style car fuses. So I'm going to get this thing put together and then see if I have some car fuses handy, and we'll see what it looks like. But the beauty of this kit is you can throw this in line with anything, off of a power supply, off of whatever you're using at field day, a battery connection, anything, and you can instantly throw a fuse in line, because we all know we have everything on power poles anyway. The case is 3D printed. It's excellent quality 3D print. It's very stout and a very simple design, so it wouldn't be too hard to reproduce. And then this whole thing just snaps together once you've got the circuit board in there. So the other thing that I think is cool about this basic design is you can put smaller fuses in here. You don't have to use a 30 amp fuse. A prime example of why I would want something like this, we were testing TNCs on nuggets with TO a couple, 3 weeks ago. We've been doing that for a couple shows. But I was using my Astron 35 amp power supply, and it provides 13.8 volts, and the TNC would work on anything from 9 to 15, but that was the convenient power supply I had. The issue is that the Astron is fused for 35 amps. So if I touch something and shorted that thing out, potentially I'm going to have 35 amps at 12.8 volts, or 13.8 volts, blasting through whatever I have. And it could hurt me, and it would most likely damage or break whatever circuit that I was using. So there was no amp limit, theoretically, on that power supply. 35 amps, a lot of juice at 13.8 volts. So with something like this, even if I don't want to use this all the time for testing, I can put in very low current fuses, like 1 amp or 2 amp fuses. So that way, if I have a short, the fuse will blow before potentially, you know, fire, smoke, and bad words escape. So that is one of the ideas that you can do with this board. And of course, these things just go on the board like so, and then we'll solder them in. Same with the fuse connectors. And the beauty of this design is there's no real wrong way to do this. It goes in either way and solders either way. There's no wires you can cross. The hardest part of this kit, and I don't think TO sells these anymore, but if he did, is putting these into your power pole connectors. And in some ways, obviously this is the hardest part of the kit. It's the most complicated because you got to shove it in there. You just need to know how a power pole connector goes in. And this is the same kind of thing that you'd be shoving in with a wire, except now I'm shoving it in like that. I get a nice satisfying click, and this guy is ready to go. And it will mate up with a standard power pole connector like so, and we have a good electrical connection. So whatever connector I plug this into, I know those are good, those work. So without further ado, let me get the soldering pad up here, fire up the iron, and let's put this little bad boy together. So you know I mentioned soldering iron pad. This is why. This is not designed for solder. And if you drop hot solder on it, it burns that. So we need to use a silicone mat. So I'm going to put a little flux on all these connectors. Pads, excuse me. And then the first thing I'm going to do is tin all of these things. Before we start sticking parts in there, so it'll be easier to get everything to stick. Okay, so before we solder these in, it occurred to me that these need to be lined up straight so they'll mate with other power pole connectors. So the best way to do that is to go ahead and fasten these two together and get them squared up. So that way, no matter when we put this in the board, if this ends up being at some kind of weird angle, this will still line up on this end with our power poles. The second thing that occurred to me is this is going to be a pain in the butt to try and solder. So I am going to set up a little blue tack underneath this to kind of hold this level, like so. And then we'll see how this works. You'll notice that there's no connectors on this anymore. I had to deconnectorify it. I started to test it and I couldn't get it to work right. And I'm like, it's straight through. How in the heck is it not connecting? Right? I should be able to touch here and here and it should beep. And I should be able to touch here and here and it should beep. And it doesn't. Because of the way these particular connectors here are made, what T.O. was telling me is they only come in one shape. You can't get them turned the other way. So what he didn't want the power pole connectors facing the wrong way. So what they did when they designed the kit is they built a crossover. So you can see my little jumper wire is, I don't know if you can see it, it's green. It's right here on this one side. And I don't have connectivity. But I do have connectivity over there. This one isn't connected to anything yet because there's no jumper there. But with the jumper on this side, or a fuse, this would be a fuse, and you can verify I'm touching this, connectivity there, connectivity on the other side. That's where my connectivity is. So what all this means is that you're going to have red on one side and red on the opposite side on the other end of this device. Black will be opposite as well. So because I didn't remember that from 2 years ago, I'd gone ahead and put the connectors on and all was sunshine and puppies, except that I didn't have them lined up right. So I have to redo that. In any case, and I'm going to do that. But that is this little fuse device. And T.O. had several iterations of this. The first iteration he made, it used some big chunky, like 40 amp marine size fuses. Him and his partner that designed the board ended up smallifying it a good bit and making it much more compact. There's no fuses that he includes with the kit because what you fuse is up to you and how much fuse you want. Like I have mentioned earlier in this video, for testing purposes, I'll probably put a 1 or a 2 amp fuse in here. So, you know, if I'm using like my Astron power supply that has 35 amps, I'm going to smoke this thing way before anything else goes sideways. So, all right. So now that we've figured out the mystery of the connectors, which I did not remember about the crossover section. So that means the connectors will be the same way on both sides. And you can see they are, right? The little tab is at top. And if we rotate this, the little tab is at top. So apparently it was a thing. We've got our gadget put together. I had to get some fuses. These are 2 amp fuses. I'm going to use this as a very low current protection device for testing random stuff. I can plug this into my Astron power supply that's 35 amps and use this with things that require a whole lot less power than 35 amps at 13.8 volts. But what this will do is if I draw more than 2 amps, it's going to pop these fuses. And that's great for testing stuff that's going to be low current draw. And that way you protect it against accidentally touching the wrong thing and drawing full 35 amps of current. So we're in continuity mode on the meter. I'm in the red side there. And we have continuity. Let's test the black side. I don't know if you can hear the beep, but it's loud and vocal here. And there's the black side. And black to red does not work. And black to red does not work. So even though it looks backwards, again, it's because the power poles are now the exact same way on both sides, and that is because of the way those power pole board connectors work. We are good to go.